Well, they're not exercising, which shocks people. You don't see people doing CrossFit or training for marathons, but they live in places that every time they go to work or a friend's house or out to eat, it occasions a walk. Mm-hmm. They have gardens out back, so they're spending a little time with low-intensity physical activity every day. Their houses aren't full of mechanical conveniences, so they're doing a lot of housework by hand and yard work by hand. The bottom line is they're moving every 20 minutes or so, keeping their metabolism high all day long and probably burning a lot more calories over the course of a day than you would spending 30 minutes in a gym, which most people don't do anyway. So they tend to belong to a faith. Doesn't matter which faith, but showing up to a church, temple, or mosque is worth 4 to 14 extra years of life expectancy over not showing up at all. Putting family first, keeping aging parents nearby, investing in a spouse, and investing in your children. You see that through all blue zones, as opposed to being career focused or, following my passion, so to speak. Family tends to be very high in the passion list. They have time every day when they're downshifting. They're releasing that stress from the human condition. The Adventists pray before each meal at the beginning of the day. The Okinawans have ancestor veneration where they're spending some time remembering their ancestors and to a certain extent relinquishing their day to the oversight of their ancestors. The Costa Ricans and Icarians take a nap every day, which we know is associated with lower rates of heart disease. And then the Sardinians just do happy hour, which we're back to wine again.
It's all come back to the wine. It all comes back to the wine. So that makes a lot of sense. And then connection as well, which I know you've already touched on family, but having those connections, right, is another pillar, being able to have people you can count on.
I call it right tribe. We know that so many health behaviors are contagious. Drinking, drug use, alcoholism, loneliness, unhappiness, they're all measurably contagious. So in blue zones, you see very clearly people tend to run in pods. In Okinawa, they're called moais, but committed circle of friends that tend to reinforce these healthy habits. They're eating plant-based, they're doing their daily walk, they're in the gardens, they have a sense of faith and a sense of purpose. So translating that to our lives in America, where we don't necessarily fall into a pod, curating that immediate social network, that 4 or 5 people who we're spending a lot of time with, who we have meaningful conversations with, who we count on a bad day, that is so important. So if you're hanging out with the type of people who are bellied up to a bar and sit around a bitch or drink too much, or they're out back barbecuing hot dogs every night or watching TV, guess what you're more likely to be doing? As opposed to finding friends like you who are jazzed about life, intellectually curious, stay fit, commit to family, eat healthy, eat plant-based. That's all plant-based. So to people listening there, if you want to get healthy and live to 100, your best bet is to make friends with Samantha.
I'm all for it. You guys DM me. Seriously, DM me anytime. And I want to ask you a question about that. So with those 3 to 4 friends who you want to be able to count on, to be able to check that lovely 9 pillars box, can spouse, parent, sibling be part of that? Or we're talking about outside the family unit?
No, it can be that.
Okay.
It can be a child or a parent or a sibling, absolutely.
I always wonder that because I'm so tight with family, and I'm always jealous of, like, my sister who's got this amazing group of big girlfriends who she can always count on. And I have lots of friends, but I don't have that huge group of people because I'm so tight-knit with the family. And I wondered, can I still check that box? So I can check that box. Score.
You know what, Samantha? I believe most people who talk about their 150 friends, you can bet they're probably not that tight. I think this is a handful of 5 or 6 people, really.
Okay, that's a good thing to know. And then the other thing is life purpose, right? Being able to write your life's purpose sort of in 1 or 2 sentences on a piece of paper is another part of that?
Yes. So in Okinawa, they call it ikigai. In Costa Rica, it's plan de vida. but it's the cross section of your values, your passions, what you're good at, what you like to do on a daily basis, and a thing that you have an outlet for. And a minority of Americans have that outlet at their work. A majority of people don't. So if it's not at your work, it's finding another place to put that purpose to work. Because you can hold purpose in all day long. It doesn't do you a heck of a lot of good. It's when you're out engaging in service or making other people's lives better. That's when purpose, I think, really sails and really adds that extra life expectancy.
Absolutely. Are there any other pillars we haven't touched on? I feel like we hit most of them.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, in Okinawa, we learned this 2,500-year-old dietary strategy summed up in 3 words, hara, hachi, bu, which means roughly stop eating when your stomach is 80% full. And we apply that to America's life in a lot of different ways. Number one, we're sort of marketed all day long, every day of the year, that better health lies in some sort of an additive food, some power bar, some power drink, some nutrient powders, some supplements, some enriched cereal. But the reality is, the Americans, we're consuming about 500 more calories per day than we ought to be eating. So the first step we ought to be looking at is to engineer calories out of our everyday life, and then get smarter about those calories. So there's a number of ways we help people mindlessly consume less food. First of all, if you trade out your 12-inch plates for 10-inch plates, you psychologically are more satiated more quickly. Pre-plating your food and then putting the leftovers away before the meal rather than letting it sit in big platters on the table. You know, I'm on what I call jokingly a seafood diet. I eat food I see. If there's no food in front of me to see, I don't eat it.
I'm like that with a plate of French fries on any given day.
Yes, it's very hard. So even saying grace, I remember you used to do that when you were a kid. Save a few moments to give thankfulness for the food. That actually works. That little punctuation between our monkey brain lives and sitting and eating intentionally. Eating intentionally, we tend to eat more slowly. Better chance that our full stomachs will tend to signal to our brain to, you got enough. If you eat too fast, you could be 20% over capacity and not even realize it until you get up and try to do something after dinner.
Right, that mindful eating really, it's a huge thing. And we so oftentimes are eating in front of the TV or eating in front of our work computers, or, you know, not really mindlessly eating versus sitting down. And even just, I find too, even just taking a microsecond to look at the food that I'm about to eat. And some people are like, oh, that's a little woo woo, but to say, thank you. Like, thank you for the fact that I'm going to put all this nourishment. Obviously, this is not if you're someone who's sitting down to, you know, a fast food burger and fries, but if you're sitting down to a robust, colorful salad, you know, with some great healthy fat in there, some avocados, and you say, or your bowl of morning minestrone, and to be able to say, thank you for this amazing nourishment I'm about to receive, because it's giving you, whether you're religious or not, it's giving you so much, and you have that appreciation, that gratefulness in that mindful moment.
I totally agree.
I love that. I love that. So when you talk about the Power 9, those check boxes of the blue zones, I remember when I was studying to be a certified health coach and we were learning about the blue zones, one thing that I found was so interesting was that depending on how many of those boxes you could check, there were some scientific data that showed, okay, if you have 7 to 9 of the 9 checked, you're going to live to, you know, your average life expectancy is, and I'm throwing it out there, so I want you to correct me on the correct ones, to 90 with 3 years of morbidity, and then if you have only 5 checked, you live to only 70 with, you know, 7 years of morbidity. Can you just walk us through that a little bit, because I find it fascinating?
Well, it's very hard to pull them apart because these elements all kind of create a mutually supporting web. So people are eating wisely, a whole food, plant-based, and they're moving naturally, partially because their life is underpinned with purpose. They surrounded themselves by the right tribe, the right people that help them do these things, and then they live in places where the healthy choice is the easy choice. So I think the mistake we make is to try to separate our diets from our social network, or our physical activity from our spouses or our social connectivity, or somehow decouple purpose from how we move and how we eat. It all works together as a synergistic cluster of factors. And to pull one out and try to attribute life expectancy to that is probably misleading.
Okay, interesting. Only because that was something we had learned about, so perhaps it's changed and shifted since then. But the bottom line is,
to kind of answer your question in a slightly different way, the average American is losing out on 12 to 14 years of life expectancy because of our lifestyle.
Okay.
So the maximum average life expectancy of the human species with an average set of genes living in the first world, i.e. America, is about 93 or 94, men a year or two less. But life expectancy right now is about 80. In fact, it's down to 79 because of COVID. So we're leaving 13, 14 years on the table. Probably the best way to recapture those years is to focus on our diet. The easiest thing to do, you don't have to count grams of fiber, calories, eat a whole food, plant-based diet with a little or no sugar. That there's some fine tuning around the edges, but that's about 90% of the answer right there.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, sorry, continue.
Well, that's probably worth 6 or 7 of those years that we're losing. Most of the years we're losing in America is because of the way we eat. Secondarily, it's our inactivity. And the number of miles we drive every year has about doubled since the 90s. So even more so, we're getting into our cars when we should be getting out from behind our steering wheels and onto our feet. And about the best thing we can do to remedy that is move to a neighborhood where our favorite coffee shop, grocery store, church, friend's house, park, work is all within walking distance. Better than any gym, CrossFit, yoga, all that other crap combined. Live in a walkable neighborhood and you don't have to think about it. That gets you about 90% of the training of preparing for a marathon. Not 100%, but it gets you really close.
I love that, because we are in such a world where it's, I mean, and the people who are watching are going, Samantha, you are the one who exercises every day like crazy. I not like crazy, but I do. But we are in a world where it's so much focused on get to the gym, get that workout and fit it in and get it done and go hard and go as hard as you got to go. And then, you know, until you're about to feel like you're going to pass out and then you've done enough exercise. And that's really not for longevity what we're really looking for. I enjoy, we also have different bodies. My body type, and I've done this through different testing, my body type actually is more of the athletic, pro athlete body that needs and wants and thrives on a lot of exercise. So, but I love it. I enjoy it, and it brings me happiness and it brings me calm.
You have a lot of energy you need to burn, Samantha. I can feel it on this side of the computer. I can nearly warm my hands to your energy.
I do.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when I switched to a plant-based diet after my cancer diagnosis back in 2014, my energy, where I used to have the 3 p.m. slump and then the 7 or 8 p.m. slump, my energy goes wall to wall because of how I'm nourishing my body. And it's an amazing difference.
Yeah, because you're evening things out. You eat a bunch of meat, your body is going to spend a lot of energy to metabolize it, and then you'll come out of it in 2 or 3 hours. You'll have a burst of energy. Conversely, if you eat a bowl of cornflakes or some kind of a quote-unquote energy bar, your sugar is going to spike, and then an hour later you're going to be in the doldrums for 2 or 3 hours, then come back out of it.
Right.
So if you're eating whole food, plant-based, if you're starting to do it with oatmeal or some good whole wheat bread and peanut butter, or the DanBuettner minestrone, you're going to be even keel. All that energy is just going to be a blowtorch all day long, steady flame.
I love that. I love that. And I know too that we were talking about, you know, the Power 9, but you've narrowed things down to sort of the basic 4 pillars of the Blue Zones: plants, purpose, pedestrian, people. I feel like we've touched on a lot of those, but is there anything else in that area that we maybe missed that you want to talk about?
Well, the overarching, and you said it at the beginning, don't try to change your behavior because you'll fail. You will succeed. A handful of people will succeed in the short run, but almost everybody fails almost all the time when they try to change their behavior and swim upstream from their environment or upstream from what everybody else around them is doing them. If you want to live longer, feel healthier today, change your environment. And the secret is changing your environment so that healthy choice is the easy choice.
And that means surrounding yourself by positive people who have behaviors that are already in a healthy place, whether, like you said, they're exercising or walking regularly, they're eating healthfully, they're maybe having a glass or 2 of wine, but they're not out at the bars binging all night. Then also being in a place that allows that, right? A place where you have access to, maybe it's bike paths or walking paths, and being in a town where you can walk to your local coffee shop. And then we talk about the people you're surrounding yourselves, and then eating the plants, and then having that purpose, having that meaning of life, essentially.
Yes. So if you want to know exactly how to do it, you can go to Amazon right now. I have a book coming out in December called The Blue Zone Challenge.
Oh.
And over the past 10 years, my team and I have aggregated all the evidence-based nudges that you can set up in your life. So, i.e., changing your surroundings in your kitchen, your bedroom, your home, with your social life, your work life, either to point of purpose, kind of your internal life. These are evidence-based ways. You take a few minutes or hours now, you set it up, and you can forget about it. That's what works, because we all have limited amounts of attention, limited amounts of discipline, focus of mind, and we're going to wear out. If you set up your surroundings the right way so that healthy choice is unavoidable, you're set up for decades.
I love it. You're incredible. I know we've already taken up so much of your day. Are there any last thoughts or any last, by the way, hi to everybody who's been saying that from New York, hello, and Canada. And I think JoJo was saying hello. Hello, JoJo. She's been awesomely doing a lot of messaging and commenting. So I want to make sure we hit those people who've been so awesome and listening the last 45 minutes.
I would say the most important thing to do is to do an inventory of your social network, your 4 or 5 people who you spend the most time with. And I wouldn't necessarily tell you to dump your old unhealthy friends, but I will say that adding a few people like you, people's idea of recreation is playing tennis or walking or bowling, people who you can have a meaningful conversation with, who will care about you on a bad day, people who challenge you intellectually. And it wouldn't hurt to have a vegetarian or vegan in your immediate social network, because they'll do more than anything, any diet, in getting you eating plant-based. Because when you're with them, you're going to have to be at a place where they serve good plant-based food. You're going to have to serve good plant-based food, or you're going to be over to their house learning what good plant-based food tastes like. So that's probably the biggest thing, easiest thing you can do for the long run. If people have any questions, I'm really good at answering on direct message. My handle is @DanBuettner, and I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd love to stay in touch with you, and I'm delighted to spend time with a fellow Minnesotan.
Yes, go Minnesota.
You're one of the people who made it big out there, so we got your eye on you.
I appreciate that. And you guys also do check out obviously the Blue Zones Challenge book is coming out in December, but right now the Blue Zones Kitchen, 100 Recipes to Help You Live to 100 is already out. For those who are watching in the Your Healthiest Healthy membership community, I'll make sure in the show notes to put all the different ways that you can get in touch with Dan, direct messaging him on Instagram, going to his Blue Zones website, and all of those great things. We appreciate it. Jojo, you're from Minnesota. Way to go. Hi. I love when everybody's commenting on IGTV.
Hey,
too.
Jojo.
I appreciate you so much, and thank you for being part of Your Healthiest Healthy community today and IGTV.
Recording stopped.
All right, everybody on IGTV, Dan, you and I are still live. Everybody on IGTV, thank you for hanging out. Dan, hang out on Zoom for a second, and I'm going to go end this live if I can remember how to do that. Thanks, guys, for being here.